Oh, hello. I'm Ron Charles. You may know me as the fiction critic for a major American newspaper. Here at the Totally Hip Video Book Review, we're committed to throwing off the shackles of the past and giving you book criticism that's fast, fun, and totally hip. And yet, some of you, dear ones, still cling to outmoded standards of the past. You think we should have copy editors. You think we should be checking facts, that we should be fretting about getting things right. It's really quite touching. Listen to this letter. A letter, don't you love it? It's like something from the Jurassic period. Dear Totally Hip Video Book Reviewer, last week in your roundup of the Man Booker Prize shortlist, you incorrectly referred to Andrea Levy's Small Island from 2004 instead of to her new novel, The Long Song. Imagine, this poor old woman somewhere out there, still worrying about accuracy, details, the truth. She just doesn't understand the exciting new dynamism of the web. But maybe for the benefit of our most elderly, least hip viewers, who, let's face it, aren't going to be with us much longer, I should clear up some of the, I don't know what to call them, some of the teensy-weensy little errors that have crept into our coverage lately. Yes, it may be that Andrea Levy's Small Island and The Long Song are in fact two different books. One could argue that the British novelist Lionel Shriver is not in fact a man. It's come to our attention that the writer we refer to as Upton Sinclair Lewis may have been two different people. After further investigation, we can state categorically that Virginia Woolf and Tobias Wolff are not in fact the parents of Tom Wolfe. It turns out that the Iowa Writers' Workshop is in fact in Iowa, but Miami University has apparently been moved to Ohio. We're still tracking this one down. The following names were misspelled in previous episodes. We regret these errors. It turns out Moby Dick actually refers to a whale. Sophie's Choice was not a sequel to Sophie's World. What the fuck? George Orwell's 1976. Jane Smiley wrote a novel called 1,000 Acres, not 1,000 Splendid Suns. And finally, Danielle Evans, the young DC area short story writer we're going to talk about today, is not the woman from America's Next Top Model. Well, certainly good to clear the air and start off with a clean slate. This week's book is a really fine collection of short stories called Before You Suffocate Your Own Fool Self. Now, I don't usually like to review short stories because I can't remember all the characters' names, but in this case, I've made an exception. At 26, Danielle Evans has already received so much praise and success, I can feel nothing but happiness for her. She's graduated from the Iowa Writers' Workshop. She's received praise from Richard Russo and Salman Rushdie, and her stories have appeared in 2 volumes of the Best American Short Stories. Why not me? As an African-American woman who grew up in the DC area, Evans writes about black teenagers and college students, sometimes older, occasionally male, who live in a country still largely divided by race, but determined to pretend that everything's just fine. I don't even know. I mean, should a middle-aged white guy even be reviewing a book by a young African-American? I should have assigned this to an African-American. But isn't that condescending? What, like only black people can understand what black people write? But how do I know what a black person experiences? I don't even think of her as black. What does that even mean? Some of my favorite books are by black people. Oh no, what have I said? When picking books to assign, make sure you're completely colorblind. But don't underrepresent black authors. You don't even come close. Just shut up and stop talking about this. Everything is just fine. Quotas are bad, except when they're necessary. Can't we just put this off till February? But whatever you do, play it cool, play it cool. Don't say anything stupid, don't say anything unintentionally or unconsciously racist. Remember Coleman Silk from Philip Roth's Human Stain? I'm not Jewish. Oh my God, is that anti-Semitic? Just stop thinking about any of this. Ah, what have I said? Evans has a wry sense of humor in these melancholy stories. There's one called Harvest, for instance, about a group of Columbia University students. These young black women, they see ads in the campus newspaper offering up to $15,000 for human eggs. But they know these well-heeled couples don't want their genetic material, no matter how high their SAT scores or how healthy their bodies. Even as the story appears to glide along with no more direction than the flow of dorm room gossip, it quickly develops into an unsettling reflection on the calculus of race, sex, and commerce. That technique, the surprising dodge of moral responsibility that casts a character into deep regret and reevaluation, works well in almost all these stories. The first one, Virgins, is a deceptively casual tale told by a 15-year-old girl. Evans, who teaches creative writing at American University, brings us right into the overconfident patter of these bored, anxious teens. Evans' greatest talent is her ability to create poignant moments of crisis in the lives of transient people who just can't seem to connect with those they love. My favorite is one called Someone Ought to Tell Her There's Nowhere to Go. Set in the Washington area, the story involves an Iraq vet who comes home to discover that his girlfriend has moved in with a new guy. Well, determined to behave kindly and stay in her life any way he can, he volunteers to babysit her 5-year-old daughter. And what's the harm if this little one wants to call him Daddy? These are the kind of issues that Danielle Evans explores in these stories, and if you're hip to that, you'll like this collection as much as I do. Well, that's it for our show. We'll be taking next week off because the President and Mrs. Obama have asked me to help them host the National Book Festival at the mall. So until then, keep book culture alive by surfing and tweeting and friending. I'm Ron Charles, your totally hip video book reviewer.